just in case any of you had problems creating the repository or whatever, I'm quickly going to take that BMI thing and put it in its own repository. With me? All right. So you go, well, that I don't have, then just tune me out if you already know how to do this. So I'm just going to go out to GitHub. All right. And I'm going to come in here and click right there and choose the plus sign, sorry. The plus sign, I'm going to choose new repository. And I'm going to just call this BMI console and GUI. Okay, that's nothing special about that name. It's the name I gave it. I could give it a description. I'm going to make it public, so if you ever want to look at this, you'll be able to. All right, and I'm going to click Create Repository. Okay, this is the stuff that I care about right here. You with me? This is the stuff I care about. So I'm going to come in here. There's a better way of doing it than what I'm showing you, but I don't remember what it is right now. So I'm not going to give that to you. So let's see. Where is it? No, what the heck did I call it again? Is it just BMI? Is it that one? Looks like it. I want to double check and make sure this is the right one. I'm going to throw it out there for everybody to look at, and I should be throwing the right one out. It looks like that is. All right, so I'm here. So what are the steps? Step one, I'm going to come in here. I'm now under BMI. So I'm right under. I'm going to right mouse click, choose Git Bash here. All right, and I'm going to keep this over here so you can see everything that's happening. And I'm going to come in, and first I'm going to type in, if I type in Git status, it's going to give me an error message because there's not anything associated with this yet. So I'm going to type in Git space init. When I do, you'll see a .git folder will appear over here once I hit enter. And there it is. So I now have the .git folder. Now, I can, before I typed in Git status and it gave me an error message, I'm going to type in Git status again right here, and now notice it says you've got all this stuff here if you want to go and add it. I do. So I'm going to come in here and say git space add space dot. That does what's called staging those files, which means they're ready to be committed. So git space add space period, hit enter. Nothing magical happened, but if I type in another git status, now it's showing me these are all the files that are in there. See that? So it showed me all the files that are inside of, all right, my project. So I've got that. So now I can say git space commit space -m, and then you put in a message. So initial commit. Whoops. And hit enter, and there it put them in. All right. Now I want to go back to where I was in here in Git, and I've done this. I've done the init. I did the add. I did the commit. I don't really have to do a branch. I'm not doing branches. That just means I want to make copies. So I'm going to grab this line of code right here. I'm going to copy that to the clipboard, and I'm going to throw that into here. And hit enter. Nothing magical happens, so I've got one more line to put in. And that's this git push. So I'm going to put that in now. Paste that in, hit enter. Error, failed to push some refs. Don't know what the problem would be. Failed to push some refs. Okay. Those were the right steps. I'm going to try that branch. I didn't think I had to put in a branch though, but I'll try putting that in. I was always told you didn't need to put in a branch if you weren't branching, so. Oh, it did want that branch statement. So you'll notice everything's done. Now look on the screen. When I take this is my repository. When I refresh, there's my console and there's my GUI. So if you'd ever need these for whatever reason, they're both public. You can go out to JP Scott Rankin, BMI console and GUI. You click on code, and if you click download zip, you now have both files. Does that make sense to everybody? So you will do that next time in that hot thing that I asked you to create last time. You'll keep adding to that hot solution. One thing I wish I would have shown you, and I didn't, please look on the screen, everybody. All right, even those of you who know what, you have experience, etc. Let me try. I should have brought that back up. So let me bring up GitHub again. All right, I'm going to quickly create a new repository. I don't care what the name is because I'm not actually going to save it. So I'm going to just put that in. But when you go down here, there's add README, add Git Ignore. See this? This is something that you might want to consider doing, because if you click add Git Ignore, it's got templates. See that? Now when I come down here, there should be one. There's a C++, but I think there's one for Visual Studio. There. That won't take any of those system files that you don't need. The Git Ignore means that when you go and add all this stuff to the repository, don't add those files. Did everybody hear what I just said? All right. Now, we've already created our hot one, so they're all going to be in there anyway. It's not hurting anything. You're pushing all this stuff, and you're pushing it out to the cloud. Does that make sense? And I'm going to say this. You might think, oh, he's not funny, but I'm not trying to be funny. The cloud ain't about to run out of the room anytime soon. All right. But we really should have done that first, and we didn't. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go back into the book and go back to chapter 5. Again, much of this material we've covered. Some of it we have not covered. All right. So Boolean expressions, relational operators, and logical operators. Then the conditional with if, else, and switch. Then loops. Then they bring it all together and they use it in the future value application. So what I'm going to do is I don't want to take a chance of screwing this file up anymore. It works. So there that is. I closed it. I'm just going to open up a new Visual Studio. You don't have to do this. I think you'll be fine if you just watch me do it. All right. And what I'll do, I'm just going to make it a console app just so you see this stuff. Next. I'll put it onto my desktop. And if you guys want, I could even push this out there later. I don't know why you'd really need it, but that's still fine. So I'm going to just call this control structures. Oops. Control structures. There it is. All right. Now it's going to create it. Okay. So why am I doing this? Why are you wasting our time, Jeff? I'm going to show you real quickly. If you look up on the screen, first thing, you already know ifs, right? So I'm going to come in here and say int age equal, let's just say int age. We won't even give it a value. All right. Then I'm going to come in here and say this, because you know this stuff now. Let me go back in here and do this using static system.console. You know what that is. We've already used it. So I'm going to come in here, write, enter your age, please. And I'm going to immediately do, I know that we've already looked at in the last chapter, the converts and the try parses and stuff. I'm not going to put any validation in. Did you hear me? I just want to go through this stuff with you. So I'm going to say here, age equal convert dot to int 32 read line. All right, so I'm putting this in. Boom, there it is. And I'm going to say if age, in fact, let's even put in a constant here. So I'm going to put a const int voting age. Is it 18 here? I mean, I think it is all over the country, but I know that you guys, your drinking age is 21, right? Yeah. I used to bug my friends because it was 18 when I lived in Wisconsin, but I've always been told I look old. So I'd go into bars at 16 and I'd never get carded. I didn't drink, but nobody ever carded me. So, and they'd always get carded, and they didn't like that. So I'm going to const in voting age equal 18. So I'm going to say if age is greater than or equal to voting age, I'm just going to say right line, you can vote. Now, does it make sense? I'm asking you this. Does it make sense to everybody? When I run this, it's going to say you can vote. Does that make sense? It better at least, unless I really screwed up more than I think I might have. So I'm going to run it. Enter your age, please. Well, 18. You can vote. All right. But if I run this, I'm asking you this question. I'm going to put in 17. What's going to print? Nothing. It's going to still ask me, enter your age, please. 17. Oops. 17. Just stops. That's an if without an associated else block. All right. So if I come in here now, I can say else, right line, sorry, not of voting age yet. All right. So I come in here and I run this, make sure I didn't break anything. So 18 says, yep, you can vote. Run it again. I could put this in a loop. We'll do that later. I'll say 16, sorry, not of voting age yet. Does that make sense? All right. Now, what if I do this? Let's assume we do want to check if the person's 18. Okay? So I'm going to say if you're greater than voting age, you say you can vote. I'm going to say else if age equal voting age. I'm just going to print just made it. Just made it. Go vote. All right. Now I've got 3 different paths that I can go down. All right. So I'm going to run this. I run it the first time, I'll put in 66. You can vote. I run it a second time, I put in 10. Not a voting age. I run it a third time and I put in 18. Whoops, not there. Had to run it first. Run it a third time and I put in 18. And it says, just made it, go vote. All right. The point is, if I use an else if, I can have as many else ifs as I want. If I do put an else, it has to go after the last else if. I can have an else if without an else. I can have an else without an else if. Got all that? All right, so I'm going to rewrite this right now. I don't need this anymore. In fact, I'll just in case, I'll comment it out. But I'm going to have a new variable in here. And I'm going to say string size equals, and I'm going to say it's the empty string. All right, I'm going to say enter your size, please. All right, and now I don't have to do any conversion because it's a string already. So I'm just going to say size equal read line. That should make sense, hopefully, to all of you. All right, now I can always try to bring that back if I need it, but I'm going to remove all that. Come on. Because otherwise it might get too confusing. Okay, so get rid of that. Don't need age anymore. Get rid of that. Okay, so I want to come in here and I want to say this. If size equal s, oh, got to be in double quotes, sorry. I could have made it a string as well, but I'm just going to do it like this. So if it's s, right line, you are a small. We're going to suppose here we have 4 sizes. Are you with me? Small, medium, large, and extra large. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. So to save a little time, I'm just going to do some quick copying here. I'm going to put 5 of them in. Why 5? I'm going to show you right now. If it's an M, we're going to say you're a medium or a medium. If you're an L, we're going to say you're a large. If you're an XL, we're going to say you're an extra large. Otherwise, we're just going to put unknown size. Now, I got to make a couple more changes in here. So this has to be an else. This has to be an else. And this is an else. Do you all understand what we're doing here? Anybody have any questions on it? Anything? So I want to run through this, and I'm going to throw this into a loop so I don't have to keep running the program. All right, so I'm just going to put in here while 1 equal 1. All right, I need to get rid of that. Oops. Need to get rid of this. Move all these over, and then put my final curly at the bottom. All right. So all I did was put it into a loop. So let's, if I didn't screw it up, it should work just fine. So put your size in there, please. Now I didn't do a thing with uppercase, so I've got to put it all in uppercase. S says you are a small. Well, I didn't give myself a chance to put it in again, so I'm in an infinite loop. That wasn't smart. All right. So let's, after we do each one of these, let's just put break. Well, it's not going to allow me to run. Oh, it'll be fine. Even if I have to run it multiple times, I don't care. There's a reason. I'm not trying to waste my time. I'm not trying to waste your time, but I want to be able to show you this. All right. So S says you're small. Fine. Run it again. M says you're a medium. Good. L says you're a large. That's good. XL says you're an extra large. That's good. Run it one more time, and I'm going to put in a D. It says unknown size. That all works. All right, that's all fine. So why did I waste your time showing you that? Because I want to show you another way you can write this. All right, and that is, says enter your size. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to type in this. Switch size. All right, now I'm going to say case S. Whoops. It's going to write you're a small. I don't need curlies anymore. Try it again. All right. Let's see. Yeah, that looks good. Case M. You're a medium. Case L, and these have to have colons after them. You're a large. Case XL. You're an extra large, and then you put the special word in here, default, unknown size. All right, see the difference? But when you do this, if you use a switch, you've got to list every possible value. So if I was doing grades, I wouldn't want to use a switch because I'd have to say case 90, case 91, case 92, case 93, etc. A. Case 8, etc. I don't want to do that. Then you use an if. But if you've got only a few things like this, it'll work. This should work. It should run exactly the same as the other one did. So again, if I put in XL, you are an extra large. All right, I'm not going to run through all of them. Hopefully that just made some sense to you, okay? All right, the other thing I want to show you quickly in here is, not to bore you, but I'm going to count to 10 on the screen. But I'm going to do it 3 ways. First, I'm going to come in here and say int. I usually call mine LCV for loop control variable. I'm going to set it equal to 1. And I'm going to say while LCV is less than or equal to 10, I'm going to say right line LCV. Now, I'm not going to run this yet. If I ran it right now, it would keep printing LCV equal 1, LCV equal 2, or just It would say 11111111111 because I'm not changing the value of LCV. Does that make sense? So I'll come in here and say LCV plus plus. I could do plus plus or at the beginning or the end. All right. But now if I save this and I run it, there's the numbers 1 to 10. Works just fine. All right. That's a while loop. And some of you have already been using while loops. That's fine. But I can also do this. I can come in here and say do, and I can put the while on the end, but then I need a semicolon at the end. So I'm doing the same thing. It should write it, add 1 to it, check it. Let's check and see what that looks like. And it prints out, bingo, 1 to 10. Okay? Finally, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to write it one more time. I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to say for int LCV equal 1, LCV less than or equal to 10, plus plus LCV. And then I'm just going to write it, period. And what do I get? 1 to 10. All right. So there's 3 ways, at least so far, that we've gone over that you can loop. We can do it this way. I'm going to put all of them in here just so you can see all of them, and I'll comment each one out. You can do it, the first way we did it was with a while loop. So int LCV equal 1, while LCV less than or equal to 10. Right line. LCV. Then we have to add 1 to it, LCV plus plus. So that's another way we can do it. Or, like I said, now I'm going to take this and I'm going to comment that out and put it in again down here. Whoop, let me just grab the whole thing. And this will be a do while. Do while this. So those are the 3 different ways that you can write loops. All right, and I will close, or well, you can see all 3. Questions on any of those 3? The first one, the while loop, and the last one, I'll listen to this, especially you new people, the while and the for, all right, they're called, basically, they are pre-expression loops. In other words, if I make this right here, if I make this 11, you with me? I made that 11. I never go through the loop. You test, it's a pre-test. You test before you go into the loop. And you test here. If I said 11 right here, it's never going to go through it. There's no reason to. Because it starts at 11, while it's less than or equal to 10, it never is. So you'd skip it. This is a post-test loop. You always go through it at least once. So even if that was 11, you'd write out 11, you'd add 1 to it, and it would not be less than or equal to 10, so you fall out. Now, often what programmers do is they write their error checking code in do while loops, so they're sure that it runs and it's working correctly. Then they may convert it over to a while or even leave it as a do while, depending on what they're writing. But these are the 3 different ways. So what I've just shown you I've shown you an if statement, an if with an else, an if with else ifs and an else, a switch, a while loop, a do while loop, and a for loop, because that's the crux of what Chapter 5 is about. All right. So when we go back in here and we look, if, switch, while, do while, for loop. We'll talk about break and continue a little in just a minute. I've shown them to you, but I didn't really go over them. And then they go over the future value. All right. So it is 11:41, which gives me about 15 minutes to do this. Here's the relational operators. Notice when you check for equality, it's double equals. If you use single equals, it's an assignment statement. It's wrong. So if you're checking for equality, it's got to be a double equals. Unlike JavaScript, JavaScript has both a double equals and a triple equals. Not one of those in here, just a double equals. All right. And then not equal to, greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. Am I right in assuming everybody knows what all those mean? All right. Again, there's examples if you want to take a look at them. The logical operators, and is 2 ampersands, or is 2 pipe signs. The pipe sign is right up above your enter key. All right, but you have to hold down on the shift. Now, also C# uses what's called short-circuiting operations. What the hell is short-circuiting operations? If I do this, I'm going to say here int x equal 10, int y equal 3. Okay? Now I'm going to say if x less than 4, or I'm going to say and. I'll do it the or next. And y equal 3. Okay? Would you agree, looking at this, x is not less than 4? Would you agree with that? It's 10. It's not less than 4. Well, the short circuiting says with an and, this has to be true and this has to be true. So with short circuiting, since that's false, it never even checks this one. It says I don't have to. Why? All right. Let's change this from a less than to a greater than. And let's change this to an or. Is x greater than 4? Yeah. So it never checks this because it doesn't have to. If you want to force it to do those checks, you can use a single ampersand or a single pipe sign. It's going to be virtually never that you want to do that. All right. And if you want to negate something, it's not. Guess what? You saw that. Remember when we were working with those flags and we said not is height or whatever the heck it was? All right. You can combine as many of these things together as you want with ands and ors that you want to. All right. Totally up to you. All right. If else, we've already looked at. So since I showed them to you in class, earlier, I'm not going to run through those again. Okay. Switch, I showed you. I'm sure theirs is much more elegant. Oh, one thing I should mention about this. 2 things. Everybody see this right here? Where they got the customer type? Let's say I left the word break off of all those. First thing is, the default is always got to be at the bottom. So you don't have to put a break there. People normally do, but you don't have to. But let's say I left off every break. And you came in here and the customer type was R. Are you with me? Okay, guess what it would do? It would do everything that's in there. The break means that you're done. Don't check any other cases. You need to put the break in there. All right. Now, show you this real quick too, just so you see it. Again, I'm just trying to be complete here. In that little bogus program that I created there, I'm going to take this for loop and I'm going to uncomment everything that's in there. Okay, so you saw this. And I'm going to go and run it again. It's going to give me the numbers 1 to 10. Fine. Now, if I come through here and I do this, if I say if LCV equal 7, break. Anybody want to take a guess as to what it's going to print? Break means get out of the loop. So it's going to print 1 through 6. And it's going to be, that's all it's going to print. It's going to get out of the loop then. At least it's what it should do. 1 to 6. All right. On the other hand, if I use the word continue here, it skips the right line. That's right here. So what it will do is it'll print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. So it's when it hits continue like this, it skips the rest. So this should not print 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. All right. The other thing I wanted to tell you too about this in here, you don't have to have a default because it's like a final else. These are like a bunch of ifs and else ifs. So you don't have to have a default. It's considered good practice to always put a default value in there. It's a catch-all type of case. All right. So they give this enhanced version of this total application. All right, now it's the customer type. Not everybody gets a 25% discount like you had before. This is more reflective, I would think at least, of real life. All right. And again, they give you the code. All right. So looping. Again, we just talked about it, but let's look at it again. Here's their examples. What goes in here inside of the curly braces there, or with a do while, or in your for loop is a Boolean expression. It's something that has to be able to be true or false. If you remember, when we first started going over this stuff, I put while 1 equal 1, or while 1 equal 1. That's an infinite loop. You already saw that infinite loop earlier when I forgot to change the value, and it just kept printing. All right. If you do have code that you want to run 24 hours a day, and again, these guys have heard this already, but before I went into teaching, I was a telephony programmer. That was back in the days of rotary phones. Okay? And the code that we had that ran those, at that time, you wanted to be able to pick up a phone at any time, 24/7, 365 days a year, and get dial tone. That was in an infinite loop. All right? Sometimes when you get into an infinite loop, it's just you made a mistake. So it just depends. All right? Okay. So there's the do while. Again, pre-test versus post-test. I already mentioned that to you. Now with some of this, and I have not even mentioned this to you, but if you look at this example, that one. Technically, I don't need the curly braces. If there's just one statement after an if, or after an else, or an else if, or a while, or a for, or a do while, you don't need the curlies. I think you would do for a do while always. But the point is, I put them in all the time anyway. It's considered better practice to put them in. All right, so with the for loop, again, that's different. You initialize here, you test here, and you increment or decrement there. So this is saying initialize I to 0, check to see whether or not it's less than 5, and add 1 to it. It only does the initialization one time. All right? It checks it every time through, and if the condition is met down there, it adds 1 to it. All right? In the next, and not in the next chapter, when we get to chapter 8, we'll work with arrays. Arrays and for loops, as Forrest Gump would say, go together like peas and carrots. All right? They just work really well with one another. So again, there's several examples of how to use that in here. I just mentioned to you the break and the continue, so I've shown you those. As it says, I should just say that for completeness. Use break to jump out of a loop. Use continue to go back to the top of the loop and basically dismiss that rest of that iteration. Debugging techniques for loops, well, just be real careful. All right. They say here, when you're in break mode, if I had something that was looping through 1,000 times, and if I keep hitting the F11 key, it's going to run that loop 1,000 times. All right, but if I use some of the other ones that are in here, and we're going to have a whole chapter on this later, you can tell it to just run through it once. All right. Finally, they end up by going through this future value application. Muroc books love future value for whatever reason. It looks like this. This says, if I invested $100 a month or $1,200 a year at 7.5%, like that's available, and I did it for 10 years, that's how much money I'd have after the end of the 10 years. All right, so 1,200 times what, 10 years? That'd be 12,000. So I'd be making $5,924, or $5,904.24 in interest is what they're saying. So they write this, they give you all the code. They show you the code for the form. And that's it. Now, I'm not going to do it right now, but I'm only going to do one thing with you tomorrow. I'm going to take the first 5 to 10 minutes. I promise. Nothing else. I'm going to give back the tests. All right, I'm going to do it tomorrow because I've got one more to grade. Plus, Gabriel's doing his right now, and I'll grade his. So you'll all get your tests back. All right, that's the first thing. And the other thing that I'm going to do is very quickly, I'm going to show you what the next set of assignments are for chapters 4 and 5. I'm not going to spend much time on it. The rest of the period, I guarantee no more than 15 minutes tomorrow. So the rest of the 3 hours and 35 minutes tomorrow will be lab. 3 hours and 50 minutes on Thursday will be lab. Friday, I will give you a pretest. If you want to take the pretest, fine. It's just like we did before. I'll give you the first couple of hours to go over it. Then I'll spend the last hour and a half or so going over what I wrote for a key. All that makes sense? All right. That's it. Any problems? Okay. Okay, as long as it's there. Thank you. It's 2 minutes early, but if you don't make a lot of noise, you can leave. I would ask if you're going to leave and you're going to make noise, then go out that way. Don't go by Mr. Corrigan's class. All right? He does not like it when people make noise outside of his room. I don't blame him. What's that?
Who does?
That's a good point. What's that?
The people who are blind, I don't know.
Yeah.